Have you ever wondered what a country drowning in plastic waste would do if no one came to help? No foreign aid, no billion-dollar pledges, just everyday people, forced to find their own solution. Welcome to Burkina Faso, one of the poorest nations in the world, yet home to one of the boldest ideas in modern Africa. You may have heard of roads made from old tires, but what if I told you that in this small West African country, people are turning plastic bottles into bricks and building homes with them? This isn't some futuristic plan. It's already happening. In markets, in schools, in dusty alleyways, plastic has become the enemy. Bottles clog drainage systems, bags float through the air like ghosts, and when the rains come, streets turn into rivers of garbage. For years, the problem kept growing, and no one seemed to care. But now, something's changing. Communities are rising, youth groups are mobilizing, and plastic, the same plastic once choking their neighborhoods, is being collected, melted, and remade into something useful, something powerful. What you're about to see isn't just a story about plastic. It's a story about survival, innovation, and a quiet revolution happening far from the spotlight. And if you stay with me until the end, I'll show you how this movement could reshape not just Burkina Faso, but the future of green construction across Africa. The idea wasn't born in a shiny office or government building. It began on the ground in neighborhoods where people were tired of waiting. For years, citizens of Burkina Faso watched the plastic pile up. Bags and bottles were everywhere, on rooftops, in rivers, along roadsides. There were no large-scale recycling plants, no government-sponsored waste collection in many towns, and certainly no landfill solutions big enough to handle the crisis. But one thing they had in abundance was plastic bottles. That's when a small group of builders, teachers, and volunteers asked a simple question. What if these bottles weren't waste? What if they were building blocks? At first, most people laughed. You want to build a house out of trash, they said. It sounded like madness. But then, experiments began. The process is surprisingly simple. First, thousands of plastic bottles are collected from homes, markets, and roadsides. Then, they're cleaned and filled tightly with sand or dry soil. Each filled bottle becomes as hard as a brick, heavy, strong, and durable. Once they're packed, the bottles are stacked like bricks and held together with a mix of cement and clay. The result, a wall that is not only strong, but also better insulated than a regular concrete one. Cooler in summer, warmer in winter. And here's the surprising part. These plastic bottle homes are cheaper to build than traditional houses. In a country where most people can't afford even basic shelter, this is a game changer. But the real turning point came.
You will hear about the African Union.
Traoré, the military leader and now president, began supporting local innovation projects.
But what is the effect
While
of the
he hasn't officially launched a national program to build homes from plastic bottles yet, he has shown repeated interest in community-led sustainability. Under his leadership, we've already seen recycled tires used to build roads. So the next step, it could easily be plastic bottle housing. In fact, some local organizations in Burkina Faso are already moving forward without waiting for government approval. They're building classrooms, small homes, even storage facilities using this method. And the results are hard to ignore. These structures are strong. They resist harsh winds. They're cooler inside. And most importantly, they give people dignity. Imagine telling your children that their home used to be trash, but now it's a fortress. That's more than construction. That's transformation. What started as a local experiment in Burkina Faso is now drawing attention from far beyond its borders. Why? Because this is not just about houses. It's about solving two major problems at the same time: waste management and affordable housing. Africa produces over 70 million tons of waste every year. A big chunk of that is plastic. Most of it ends up in open landfills, rivers, or burned in the streets. And while the West has billion-dollar recycling systems, many African nations don't have the infrastructure or the budget to deal with this crisis. At the same time, across the continent, housing shortages are hitting dangerous levels. According to the African Development Bank, over 50 million people live in slums. Families are squeezed into crumbling buildings, tin roof shelters, or worse, no roof at all. But what if every plastic bottle littering the streets could help build a wall? What if trash wasn't trash, but the future of shelter? That's the revolution this idea brings, and the world is starting to notice. Countries like Nigeria, Uganda, and Colombia have already tested similar models. But in Burkina Faso, the timing is different. The people are different. and the leadership under President Ibrahim Traoré is more focused than ever on self-reliance, local innovation, and anti-colonial development models. This isn't about copying the West, it's about building something new from the ground up. Even NGOs and climate organizations are quietly watching, because this idea doesn't just cut costs, it reduces pollution, creates jobs for bottle collectors and builders, and teaches communities to look inward, not upward, for solutions. And that's why it matters. This isn't charity, it's empowerment. So, what does all this mean? A nation that was once only in the headlines for war, coups, and conflict is now being talked about for something else: creativity, courage, and community-led innovation. This plastic bottle housing project is more than a construction idea. It's a mindset shift. It's a challenge to the narrative that poor countries must wait for rich nations to save them. That change only comes from outside. President Ibrahim Traoré isn't promising miracles, but he's proving one thing: when people take ownership of their problems, they also create their own solutions. And here's the beautiful part: this model can be copied, not by foreign investors or global institutions, but by everyday citizens. All it takes is leadership that believes in its people and people who believe in their land. Now here's a question for you: what other problems can be solved with what we throw away? If a plastic bottle can become a wall, what else are we ignoring? That's why this story isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's about possibility, about a world where we stop waiting and start building, no matter how small the tools or how big the dream. If this inspired you, share it with someone who still thinks Africa is only about poverty and problems. Let them see what real transformation looks like, not from handouts, but from hands-on work. And hey, if you made it this far, thank you. You're not just a viewer, you're part of a growing global family that believes change is possible, and it starts with us. Subscribe for more real stories from Africa that mainstream media won't show you.